Welcome to another Coffee with Samso, where we talked with mineral resource companies, CEOs and identities of this industry. Today I've got Venture Minerals here with me, and I've got Andrew Radonjic, who's the Managing Director, who's actually got a very, very interesting project. And I'll let Andrew talk. Maybe you can just give us a brief about yourself.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Noel. Look, my background, I'm a geologist trained at the School of Mines in Kalgoorlie, so back in the early 80s, too long ago. So a lot of my experience, degree in mining geology, so a lot of it's been working in open pit gold mines, underground gold, underground nickel, for the first sort of 20 years of my experience. And I got a master's in economics and moved down to Perth and sort of been in the corporate world since, working with a great team of blokes. I've had successes, with part of Griffin Minerals, Adamas Resources, Renaissance. I think those three companies got taken out for in excess of $500 million. And even of more recent success is Bellevue Gold, which is part of our group. And I am also non-exec director at Blackstone Minerals, which is I'm a founding director there as well. So it's been a good group of people to work with over the last what would be now 17 years. So it's a good mix. I
mean, for people who are sort of new to the industry, I think Andrew comes from the old school. You were around in the drilling heydays of the Gutnick days and the early the rush of drilling everywhere. I think that's a fantastic story, because not many people are sort of in that era. Not to say that you're an old man, but lots of wisdom, lots of experience, and I want to share that, because it's very important, because what we're going through now in our industry, it's not seen for many decades, and I think you would agree with that.
Absolutely.
The guys who started, Hamish and yourself, who started Venture, actually came from Paulson's, right? Which
correct.
You
yes.
had Paulson's, and that sort of left your hands and went into Northern Star,
to Bill's hands. That's right.
And the rest is history.
That's right. Well, you got to get your timing right, gold price and all that sort of thing. But Hamish and our exploration manager Stuart Owen were involved in the discovery and drill out of Paulson's, the highest grade gold mine, and back then in the late 90s, gold was unloved. Yeah. It was an unreal sort of period of time. But in the mid-90s, when I was working for Centaur Mining, we made a gold discovery, and every Gutnick company was finding Jundee, Bronzewing. It was a fantastic exploration boom, and yet the gold price was $500 Australian an ounce. That was crazy when you think about what today is. But yeah, you're right. We haven't seen those sort of times for a very long time, and this was for a bizarre reason where we've reached these times again, and it's pretty exciting to be involved again.
Yeah, and that sort of leads to my sort of interest with you guys. Look, Golden Grove projects and Coolan projects, they're exploration sort of dream type projects. Maybe let's expand on that.
Well, like all good projects, they appear to materialise overnight. But these projects we've had for a few years, and quite often you tend to pick up these things. And there's always a good story, like you picked them up for a different reason. And I'll touch on Coolan briefly, but there was a little discovery by G88 probably about 3 years ago, and called Quicksilver, and ended up being a duster, if you like. But they had a nickel laterite with sulfides or EM targets underneath, but they drilled and they were barren. We pegged some ground around there, and our share price tripled, overnight, along with G88. But we picked up a block of land, which now project it was called Pingarring before. Now it's called Coolan. It was a fair distance to the west, I think nearly 100 kilometres away. But we picked it up for two reasons. One is because it had that nickel PGE prospectivity about it, which obviously is now very topical with Chalice discovery not that far away at Julimar. But More importantly, it had a BHP gold prospect, and BHP, as we know, were in gold for about 30 seconds there in the mid 80s before the 87 crash, and we picked that area up and we did more work around it, and now we've got a fantastic gold in soil anomaly target there, which we're keen to drill very, very soon. So that's when you think about in that part of the Yilgarn, you've got the second largest gold mine in Australia, Boddington, within the same sort of terrain. The potential is quite exciting. So there's never been a drill hole there, so we're very keen to work on that. But so there you are, a nickel PGE story turning into a gold story. But nickel PGE story still has to be tested, hasn't been tested there fully, and still got a long way to go there. So especially on the back of the Julimar discovery. But Golden Grove North, we picked it up off prospectors who'd sort of identified the opportunity. But it's a block of land north of the very famous Golden Grove mine, which has been discovered in the 70s and now been operating for the last 30 years. EMR Capital purchased that back in February 2017 for $210 million US. And the great thing about EMR Capital is the people behind it are, Tony Manini, Owen Hegarty. These guys had it before under the Oxiana, which ended up being Oz Minerals banner. And MMG bought out Oz Minerals. MMG basically, let's say they didn't explore, they focused on mining, ran the reserves down, didn't explore too much. And the guys who owned it before have basically bought it back again, and they're making a great success of that. And from what I understand, that'll be an IPO probably for next year, or definitely next year now, and that'll be a big IPO. So Golden Grove will be unveiled to the public. It's been in private hands for a while. But to have that block of land, like 300 square kilometres north of Golden Grove, which hasn't been in one pair of hands, one contiguous block in one company's hands for basically since the 90s, provided us a great opportunity. But like these things take time, there's a lot of data, there's definitely 900 drill holes, mostly shallow. There's a lake in the way, but our view is that sometimes the best time to find another discovery is in the shadow of the head frame, and most people go, let's look for the next Golden Grove, 100 kilometres away, or 200 kilometres away, 300 kilometres away, and but sometimes these VMS systems, volcanic massive sulfides, which tend to occur in clusters, can occur in a different part along the belt, and that's what we're hoping to achieve here at Golden Grove North.
I mean, I like Golden Grove, obviously, the whole VMS story, and I think a lot of people don't understand that VMS, Sandfire was a VMS story.
Exactly.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was 6 holes and you got a discovery or thereabouts. So, I mean, I, as I mentioned to you before, I've just done an ebook on VMS, which is in good timing, because it occurs in clusters and you don't have to spend a lot of money in terms of drilling. You're not chasing porphyries, you're not chasing IOCGs, and a small cap company normally are the recipients of these deposits. And Golden Grove, I mean, that whole belt, it's a VMS story. How far it extends or not, that's another sort of mystery, but they tend to happen together, right? Like your Bentleys and your Jaguars and stuff like that. So when you guys pegged this, obviously, was it a VMS thinking then at that time, or?
Oh no, absolutely, yeah. For us, because we saw that the previous explorers had, somehow these areas go through phases of exploration, and we saw there'd been a gold phase, and we saw that there'd been an iron ore phase, and that new acquisition which we picked up there, and which is now our 4th target, and that's one of the 4 targets we're drilling at the moment. We're not drilling that particular target, but we're drilling those targets. But that particular target we just acquired back in mid-September had a exploration for iron ore fencer drilling. Holes drilled to 60 metres, minus 50 degrees. It's like there wasn't even a geologist in the rig. They just drilled the holes, walked to another kilometre, drilled another set of holes. And I mean, Stacker even assayed for anything but iron, but the geologist clearly identified that there's some copper zinc mineralisation and assayed, and the last 22 metres of that 60 metre holes, this is very shallow still, got 0.8 gold, 0.6 copper, 1.3 zinc, and they got into the sulphides at the bottom of the hole, but never extended it. So, and I think it's 10 metres at a gram, the bottom 10 metres are going a gram gold, 0.8 copper, 2.1 zinc. So, you know, to me, that's almost like you've hit the top of the ore body. It's a sensational result for us, and we were very keen to acquire that asset, and we did. It was a private Chinese iron ore company, and their focus was the iron ore, very clearly, and so it took a lot of green tea to be drunk to work out to get that deal over the line. But you know, we built the relationship, and at one stage they were interested in our iron ore asset in Tasmania, get an offtake agreement. It's a private steel mill owner. But you know, we're able to come to an arrangement. We've got access there. We're doing EM on that target now because, you know, sometimes the EM doesn't, you know, you need a massive or semi-massive sulphides. It needs to be copper. Zinc doesn't light up on EM, and sometimes the zinc and the copper zones are kind of disconnected a little bit. You know, they're staggered, and so. We may have a couple of areas to drill. One where the drill hole was, and the EM might be somewhere close by, say maybe 100 or 200 metres away, for example. So, you know, we'll see results of the EM come out shortly, and we'll be drilling that target probably towards the end of our program, which is at this stage around about 2,500 metres, 13 holes at this stage. But who knows? Maybe it could be the rig hits sulphides. Will be there for a while, a long time. So that'll be a good problem to have.
I think a lot of people don't understand that over the last 20 plus years, real exploration was almost non-existent. I mean, the brownfield guys would be there, but so that the raw stuff, and we discussed this yesterday, this region, especially the Yalgu and all this kind of stuff, sandstone has been really neglected in some ways,
yes.
Forgotten in some ways. A bit like the Menzies story now. Every man and his dog said Menzies, but it was like, oh, Menzies is a small town, nothing much. Whereas now everybody's there. So when you guys go in there, I mean, you touched on the fact that, you know, shallow drilling and all this. And I remember when I first walked out of university into a job, there was no way in the world I knew what I was doing, but I was on a rig, and whether we missed a hole and you end hole in proper things, you're just not there. So the quality of people and the amount of work that's been done is shabby it's a word to use.
Well, sometimes it's controlled not by the geologist on site, and sometimes you put inexperienced people on that first phase of drilling in an area. You need to have your most experienced geologist on, because you could easily miss something at that point. And hence, I suppose that's why the opportunities exist today. You know, you walk in with a blinkered approach. Look, our iron ore mine in Tasmania, which we just started building the processing plant. You know, people drove past that. It's only 1.5 metres thick on a forestry road. People drove past it. Mark Creasy drilled through it looking for chromium. You know, like, because
Don't knock Mark.
You can't be a winner all the time. You know, but he's had enough wins on the board, so he's got to have a few misses. Well, everyone has their day, so hopefully it's our turn. And so, you know, you go looking for something else, and probably the iron ore was worth. And back in, I think that was around about 1987 as well. Speaking about the crash previously, but when you're sitting there, and iron ore in 1987 wasn't worth much. 20 years later, a lot more. 30 years, you know, there's a difference, and that does control your thinking a lot. And or somebody goes, oh, I don't care, you know, because I'm not looking for gold because we're in an iron ore boom. Ignore the gold, ignore the copper and the zinc. You know, I can't even.
Yes, you would though.
Yes, you would. Yeah. But as explorationists, you know, you need to rip those blinkers off and keep a very broad approach and look at what the geology and the rocks are telling you, and then sort of say, oh, hang on, I think I've got onto something else. And, you know, we haven't spoken about our joint venture with Chalice down in near Manjum up in the southwest corner of WA. That's an interesting story. We picked those tenements up in the lithium boom, looking for, you know, another Greenbushes. You know, Greenbushes is not, you know, 20, 30 kilometres away. And the reason we picked that up is because we knew from our tin experience on the Mount Lindsay project, we completed a BFS in 2012. We knew tin in pegmatites exists with lithium and niobium and all those sort of things, and so we went looking for tin. Everyone else is lithium prospects. That's, you know, that's 101 stuff. But you want to go next level. So we're looking for tin. We found this tin. We thought, that's interesting. And then all of a sudden, when we started scratching a bit deeper at our Southwest project, we found that Tech had found a VMS deposit. Unbeknown to most people, tin is elevated as a pathfinder for VMS deposits. And I thought, here's an EM anomaly there, here's an EM anomaly here. This is the very first time a VTEM anomaly was ever flown in Australia. This was by Tech. This is a Canadian technology. It was in 2004. And the anomaly never got, Tech walked away because it was sub-economic and never tested this EM anomaly, which ended up being our TOR prospect. So here we are looking for a VMS. So we've gone from lithium to VMS, and then Julimar gets discovered. So I'm sitting there looking at the Julimar, and as everyone, you know, the guys at Chalice have done a great job. They've pegged around and pegged the obvious stuff, and you're sitting there going, I said to my exploration manager, as everyone else would have been having the same discussion, can we get another Julimar? And he goes, Andrew, we've already got it. We've got chrome-rich rocks, we've got the same magnetic signature, it's 20 kilometres long. So actually we pegged a little bit more land while we were down there. Then all of a sudden a knock at the door. It's Chalice walks in the door and they say, we'd love to have a look at your project. And then some months later, deal's done, we announced that on the 21st of July. You can go and check their announcement about that. Obviously, they haven't done a lot of work at this early stage, but we've done a fair bit of the work down there. We've already got the 6 kilometre long EM anomaly. In fact, along our mag feature, the upper 13, 14 kilometres, we had power lines and television towers and all sorts of things, so that the airborne EM didn't work. And obviously, the recent success of Chalice's share price going from less than $2 to over $3 is all based on that 6 kilometre long EM. Well, at Tor, we've already got that. So that's already done. And we've got access to the state forest, and we've done the drilling, and we've hit massive sulphide. Except back then, you know, when you go back and look at that piece of core, and you go, well, hang on, I can see lumps of chalcopyrite sticking in it, very much like the core at Chalice's first diamond hole, and like Legend's first diamond hole. You look at that and you go, that looks exactly like our core. And we look back at the results, and we had this 0.05% nickel. It's not a lot of nickel, but certainly elevated, and it didn't make sense because it was ticking the boxes on 0.5% copper, cobalt, even silver. You get a bit of silver, but all those are exactly the same for VMSs. But because the rock's been cooked up so much in that Yilgarn area, which is like at Julimar, you have to use chemistry to guide you what the rocks used to be, and it gets a bit hard to work out. So we were getting some conflicting messages. And so back in 2018, we stopped drilling and we're looking for a joint venture partner because this project had so many targets. And then, of course, the iron ore took off, and we sort of focused on Riley and getting that into production. But yeah, there's a perfect example of one day you've got a lithium project, and then before you know it, you've got a Julimar lookalike. You know, and that was obviously validated by Alex and his team there, and certainly I think. The experience that we've had of operating in the state forest, they'll leverage off that for their Julimar project, because we're operating, even though we're 300 kilometres away, we're in that sort of, we're near populations, we're in forest, farm, private land, and all that sort of things, which we've already done down there. They can sort of leverage off that, bring the project, do if you like, more of that sort of magmatic nickel focus to it, layered intrusion focus, which we had. We were a little bit off the mark there, but the success of that there, I think applying that at Tor, I think being free, you know, basically they'll get up to 70%, and then eventually will have an opportunity to hold a meaningful stake of 30%. And if the iron ore project's doing as it should be, making money, then maybe, you know, that pool of money can be used, maybe not necessarily building Mount Lindsay tin tungsten project, which is the original idea, but maybe it could be used for, you know, holding 30% of a Julimar Mark II version. And, you know, if Julimar's worth circa $1 billion in the market at the moment, and that's a $300 million play, that's still 10 times what we are today. And that's just one of our stories. But that's a great example that if you pick a good block of land, sometimes it'll yield something a little bit different than you expected. And that's been a very interesting story for us.
I think the key is great geology, understanding what the geology can produce. I think that's the key. I mean, one of the issues. I mean, I love that story because it's nickels again, flavour of the month, and everything else. But you know, if you've got the right geology, as you know, take the words from your fellow director, Scott Williamson. You know, geology, good geology. Your surprises tend to be on the positive side as opposed to the negative side. Right? So you know, and you know, if Riley takes up, that's almost like a journey on itself, right? Your iron ore play in Tasmania, and obviously iron ore price is buoyant, and everyone's looking for iron ore again. But I think if that gets into production, you're almost self-funded in some ways.
Well, that's correct, and that's, you know, shareholders like to be stopped being diluted, you know, but it may give the company a base. So if the project's making a feasibility study of $30 million, today at, you know, $120, that was at 90, today at 120, it makes close double that. But wherever that number ends up landing, but it's you know, add some about, you know, maybe 10 or 20% on top of that, but you get this base load of this, like a producer sort of bonus, and then you all of a sudden the company is sitting there at $30, $40 million market cap where we are today, and then all of a sudden you make a discovery. Then you'll never fall below that. You'll be always you're always on the upside. And so there's, you know, that's without any value for any of those other projects. The Chalice joint venture, the Golden Grove North, the Coolan, Mount Lindsay, you know, the critical minerals project, which is, you know, was the flagship of this company for, you know, from 2007 we drilled the first hole through to the feasibility study in 2012, $35 million later, 83 kilometres of diamond core drilling later. So we did a lot of work down there, and a one-stage venture was a $100 million market cap just on the back of that, before the iron ore came along. So, you know, there's a lot happening at venture, and so you get this sort of double whammy of being, you know, turning into a producer and an active explorer in a market which is very appreciative of exploration success. And we think at Golden Grove North and at Coolan, definitely Golden Grove North with the EM plates and we're testing as well, I think, you know, it's probably as high a probability of success you'll probably ever get an exploration project. So, you know, we're well positioned, and you know, and the successes of the Estrellas, the Azure, you know, and there's several more, you know, that don't come to mind right now. I think, you know, we get massive sulphide or semi-massive sulphide at Golden Grove in the next couple of weeks, then I think, you know, you're going to see a dramatic change in the company. So yeah, we've built a company. I've often been accused of having too many projects, but in this environment, everyone seems to be very forgiving of that concept.
Look, I think that the venture has a different story. I mean, for viewers who's new to this industry, again, venture has a lot of projects, but there are key projects in some sense. A lot of people have a lot of projects, but one flagship. I think you guys are sort of strategically placed. Your projects have, like, you know, your Southwest one's been JV'd out and things like that, and that's going to sort of take its course. Your Golden Grove is a good pun, you want to use that word, but it's in VMS territory, you know. EMR Capital's making heaps of money in that area, and lo and behold, you have something similar there, and same as Coolan. And then you've got your Riley that's potentially going to be creating a self-funding scenario. Look, you guys can, you know, I'd love to have your comments. I'm sure Andrew is happy to take comments, and if you can, you know, send your emails to Andrew at Venture Minerals there. Look, Andrew, at this point in time, I like to get to a point where, you know, if you got that 2-minute spiel, you know, or why buy venture? I know that we've gone through all the projects and all the upsides. 2 minutes, you know, why would someone buy venture?
Well, I think if you want to have exposure to a diversified portfolio, a diversified company, we're not pigeonholed as anything. We have clearly the production profile coming up, albeit modest. So we've got a production profile in a commodity that's hot at the moment in iron ore, and it's going to be happening now. So basically we're building the processing plant. So you've got that immediate exposure to that. But in the meantime, while we're going through that phase of building the plant and getting ready for that first shipment, which is all very exciting, here we are drilling some very good exploration targets. So like we've got that base load, and I think people will get exposure to exploration success in a very near term this quarter. So I think you get a bit each way, if you like. Talk Melbourne Cup's coming up soon. So a bit of, so a lot of value in venture minerals. So back us, and I think you'll be rewarded. Okay.
Yeah, one of the important things I think I want to stress here is that I've always said that projects, geology, technical merits, but one of the things that a lot of people sort of forget is management. You've got to have the right management, and the management with the right attitude, and you guys have success in Bellevue, and success in Venture, and West Africa and Gold, I think is part of the stable as well, Blackstone. So, it's that kind of focus. If anyone sort of doubts whether these guys want to go a certain direction, I don't think there should be any doubts, because the success speaks for itself.
Well, Adamus Resources, Griffin Minerals. It's working with Hamish Halliday and good friend and colleague Steve Parsons, and they've worked together on those projects. And Hamish has obviously we started this company in 2006. You look at our board; it's been there a long time. Maybe it's a good thing or a bad thing, but the good thing is that all the skill was available there, and the knowledge for restarting the iron ore mine and the tin mine where that comes into. And certainly I would expect that everyone's probably tin's kind of a little bit forgotten about in the EV cycle, but it's in the anodes of batteries. Everyone talks about the cathodes, which is very important, but tin is conductive. It sits in batteries. It's part of lead acid batteries, part of EV batteries. It's a much smaller market than nickel. So you get exposure to the EV side of things, as well as tungsten being a critical mineral, which we've got that interesting play between China dominating the rare earths and tungsten's classified like that. So there's that part of the whole project. So we've got the experience, we've got that project sitting there, virtually no valuation on it. But the people, like you said, we've got a great team. We've shared the same premises for nearly 20 years, and we've bred success out of it. And the Bellevue example is the most recent one. Blackstone's going well, and Venture is due for its time in the sun.
Look, I think the one thing, that commodity that we didn't touch on in much detail, and you brought it up as well, is tungsten. Recently, I just had a chat with a group out in the UK, and they're kicking the Hamilton project up again. So and that attitude about where tungsten will be in 3-4 years time, I think that's going to be something that is future value add for Venture, I think.
Absolutely, I think tungsten projects are it's again a smaller market. Again, it's very specialist, but it's critical, and a lot of people, and you probably remember that. The US had a strategic stockpile of tungsten, and then when the war went down in Berlin, and there wasn't a problem anymore, we didn't need a strategic stockpile, so we got rid of it. And then all of a sudden, now the US is thinking, maybe we should have that stockpile back again. So and Mount Lindsay is a significant tungsten project. So yes, those tungsten projects around the world. And what I like about Mount Lindsay is that it's got tin and tungsten. Tungsten is a bit of an opaque market in terms of pricing, does go up and down quite a bit, but having tin and in our case about 20% of a magnetite concentrate gives it a little bit of that sort of, bit like a VMS where it's that precious gold mix, a bit of a balance between different commodities. So look, I think those two commodities are overdue for their time. And they sort of peaked up about in 2016. Exchange rates in Australia came down, so it was a good time. The numbers on Mount Lindsay looked quite interesting back in 2-3 years ago. But I'll see it'll come back again. I think we're seeing that if you look at the cycles, that eventually will come around and it'll be time for tin, those specialty strategic metals to come back into play. So I don't think it's far away.
I think when you've been in this industry long enough, you do realise that at one point gold was thrown away at $240 or something, and lots of people said it will never be what it was before, and I guess they're not talking too much now.
I can't hear them at all.
Look, I love Venture Story because you guys got those projects, and any one of them could kick off, a run and just suddenly create a value add in that sense. Look, Andrew, and also, management have grey hairs is always a good thing. Means that they know things, hopefully.
In some case, no hair.
No hair. But Andrew, look, thank you for your time. I really appreciate you giving us time.
Yes.
And I hope we can follow the journey. And I'm pretty sure you got drilling results, hopefully, potentially coming out soon. Mm-hmm. And we'll see some activity.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to it, Noel.
All right. Thank you, Andrew.
All the best.